Hello, my name is Donna Zickenfuss, and I am an associate librarian at the J. Willard Marriott Library at the University of Utah. Today, I'm going to discuss how autoethnography, a qualitative methodology that uses personal reflexivity and narrative writing, can be used to help you look back as you move forward in your higher education career. This approach that goes beyond traditional journaling or reflection has helped me put into words what's important to me, what my values are, what my strengths are, and how I have been trying to make connections across my personal and professional life. Through this process, I was able to put together a lot of puzzle pieces and find a pathway to move forward. I did research and reading, a lot of writing, and built a framework for my professional development for my career. I was at a point in my career, especially during this COVID-19 crisis situation, that reminded me about what flight attendants always say: put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. I needed to uncover my story before helping others uncover their stories. As a strategic thinker, I'm a fan of logic models, and for years, I would use that approach to think and rethink my professional goals and aspirations for tomorrow, as well as 5 years out. I could brainstorm for impacts, outcomes, and activities, but there was always something missing from this process. I did not feel I was thinking very far outside my current box. Being a qualitative researcher, I had learned a lot about autoethnography. I thought this method, not a very common one or a well-respected qualitative method, would be a good way to help me get beyond my usual thinking patterns, develop a broader cognitive capacity about my personal life, and connect the dots. I hope the process I will lay out here can help you too. So the objectives for this session are to present a brief case study as an example of how I used autoethnography to uncover what Carolyn Ellis calls the ethnographic eye, and how I used what I found to bring my professional development goals into focus. You can use this process too, but everyone's journey is unique, and you'll need to find your own persona, directions, and connections. I'll introduce the qualitative autoethnography method, different from an autobiography or a memoir, a process that helped me link theory and practice and aspects of professional life to my leadership approach. I will discuss the concept of authentic leadership, something I didn't really know very much about before I started mixing reflexivity and writing to better understand my life learning and professional journey. This process became an integral part of connecting my strengths, skills, leadership approach, and professional aspirations. I'm one of those people in higher ed that have had a professional life story of many careers, not just jobs. I'm still not sure what I want to be when I grow up. At the age of 65 and nearing the end of my career, I'm still looking for ways to learn and help others learn. I started my career in the sciences as a clinical medical technology worker, working in hospitals, moved into research endocrinology laboratory work. What I really wanted to do was art and design, and after a few years of graphic design training, worked as a scientific illustrator, a book designer, a graphic designer, a K-12 technology coordinator, an instructional designer, a faculty developer, and I'm currently a librarian. Although these careers seem very different, I've always managed to adapt and grow and blend previous skills and experience with new career expectations. But when I entered into the library world, I had trouble trying to fit my square peg into a round librarian hole. This was the first job pivot that was difficult for me. I did an appreciative inquiry research project and interviewed librarians to find out what their perceptions were about their best librarian experience so I could better understand the field. I started going to library conferences where I met a librarian who asked me where I went to library school. When I responded, I did not have a library science degree, I have an EDD degree, she said, "Oh, you're one of them, a feral librarian, like a feral cat." And she told me to look it up in the Urban Dictionary. I did. I had never had a problem moving into positions without credentials before, I began freelancing as a scientific illustrator and graphic designer with only 2 years of school completed. I got my first job in K-12 without an education degree. So why was this situation different? I started questioning my capacity to really be a librarian. I experienced those pangs of imposter syndrome. Even though I had completed a master and a doctoral dissertation, I was no longer sure I could help people do library research, write literature reviews, and conduct research. In addition, this actually was the first career pivot that resulted from a real need to find a job. A department on campus where I was working decided they no longer wanted a full-time faculty developer as I was coming to the end of my third-year contract. I had moved from the East Coast to Utah 3 years earlier to take this job. We bought a house, and unexpectedly, I found myself between a rock and a hard place without a job. Fortunately, due to relationships I had established with librarians and working on projects with librarians, I was offered an opportunity to apply for a visiting librarian position. And all this seemed good, but how was I going to fit in? So becoming familiar with the process and the purpose of autoethnography, because of my qualitative research training, I decided to use this methodology as a conduit to uncover my strengths and skill sets from my past jobs and uncovering experiences that I could leverage to help create my value as a librarian and help me to fit in. So I'll start with providing some context for the autoethnography process. It's a non-traditional qualitative research methodology that focuses on an N of one, you and your experience as related to the larger societal context you find yourself in. For all of you quantitative people out there, I know this sounds self-centered and even egotistical, but there are applications for this method in qualitative research. It's not just telling your story, it involves a systematic and deep analysis component. It's about the process, not just about the autoethnography product at the end. It connects your experiences with the literature and theory and situates your personal experience in a social context. It encompasses a variety of approaches, analytical, critical, even performance-based, such as plays, scripts, poems, and fiction. It includes descriptive writing beyond what happened, like in a journal reflection, to the why and the how of the social context. It's grounded in reflexivity, a deep analysis and questioning of the why of what is happening, not just what is happening. It includes brainstorming and writing strategies to get beyond usual thinking, such as metaphors, photo voice, or an analysis of images, poetry, and performance. It usually includes the analysis on multiple types of data, documents, journals, interviews, reflections. In my case, I even analyzed a job talk presentation script I wrote when I pivoted into working in the library context about 10 years ago, as well as interviews and an analysis of a book. It is often used for analyzing social justice experiences, medical experiences, and often controversial topics around discrimination, disease narratives, and life-changing events. It is not an autobiography about your whole life. It's a method used to critically analyze life events, decisions you may have made, a unique experience you have had, or what Mezirow calls a disorienting dilemma. That disorienting dilemma in my first library conference, when someone I did not know called me a feral librarian, was the incident that sparked a need for exploration for me. This method has provided an evidence-based method for me to make sense of my past and connect that to my current situation and planning for the future. It's enabled me to make decisions, explore my impacts, and has helped me create a career path forward. It can also help identify blind spots and connect life events that you had not thought about before. Linda Starr in 2010 wrote an article about autoethnography titled "The Use of Autoethnography in Educational Research, Locating Who We Are in What We Do." that resonated with my situation and sent me on my way. I also used this method in a qualitative research course I was teaching for health science undergrads, asking them to write a short ethnographic vignette about why they decided to pursue a career in the health sciences, or what happened in their life that put them on the pathway they're on now. Their narrative stories were all unique, very powerful, and compelling. In addition, there are autoethnography conferences and a journal dedicated to autoethnographic narratives, where people present and tell their stories. I presented my preliminary autoethnography narrative, It's Okay to Be Feral, an autoethnography of a feral librarian. This autoethnography process opened doors for me, so that's why I want to share it with you today. Life is just like learning or leadership is a journey, peaks and valleys, different terrain to learn to navigate. So to begin my autoethnography process, I thought about metaphors or similes that applied to my professional life, aspirations, and identity. Thinking about a metaphor of the rearview mirror was the one that was most helpful for me. I have thought through many careers that I have been through more careers than I can count. And I found that I was always reflecting back on those experiences and looking for ways to build on them or find ways to bridge my past identity and my new identity. Here's a short excerpt from my autographic writing. Forward, backward, forward, backward. Should I go ahead or should I turn back? It would seem I was apprehensive about going forward. Since I'm always looking in the rearview mirror, thinking if I go forward, I'll miss something valuable from my past. I am not pivoting and changing careers because I did not like what I saw in the mirror. I missed aspects of some of those previous careers. Sometimes what I saw in the rearview mirror was beautiful, like the sunset or sunrise in this photo. But I always just plowed ahead anyway. I'm strong-willed, thick-headed, and once I make a career decision, I worked hard to make it work, to be successful at whatever I was doing. I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning. And so even though sometimes it looks stormy or foggy ahead, I know I can figure it out. Learning new things, new skills, and adapting to new contexts is a thrilling thought for me. Making sharp turns or wanting to take a detour or veering off onto a scenic route I came across are never out of the question. I need to be alert to what's in front of me or presented to me as I'm driving if I'm to get where I am going, wherever that is, I'm not sure yet. I've always felt like I was in total control as I was driving and navigating along my career path. But as I think back on it now, I make some hairpin turns or U-turns, and I did not realize the impact they had on my career progression. I've also learned by reflecting and analyzing my writing, and the decisions to pivot I make were not always my own, even though I would have never admitted that before. I met people along the way that were driving on a different road, experiencing different scenery, and they described something that really intrigued me. They offered to help me and supported me as I drove my car off my road, disregarding my previous map and destination, and onto a new, unfamiliar road. They were so passionate about what they were doing. Why wouldn't I want to follow behind them on their road? Passion and relationships always seem to have an influence on my decision-making, but not just any relationship, but relationships with people that I trusted and respected. Think about your life and your personal experiences. What metaphor jumps to your mind? Maybe we can discuss those when we meet in Zoom in April. These two photos made me think about my career journey as being fast-moving creek water, continuously diverting around rocks, always on a different path, and sometimes not knowing what the terrain would look like downstream. There's an element of risk navigating these waters, but with the picture on the right of tubing down a still and lazy river, slowly meandering and paddling along on a quiet and still river is the opposite of what my career has been like. So how can you get started on reflecting and writing about your past to help you better understand your current or future professional or career situation? You do not have to be a qualitative researcher. Just think back, brainstorm, and start writing. Start analyzing what you write about. Look for patterns and aha moments. Try to connect what emerges from your writing with aspects of your career. To begin, start free writing. Mix that with reflection and brainstorming strategies to help you get deeper into your professional and life experiences. To begin, don't just think about your leadership or your job. Think about what communities you belong to. Are you a parent, a student, a cancer survivor, a rock climber, whatever, write about it. What do you love and hate to do? Write about it. What values do you hold? What good, bad things have happened to you across your life story? Look at the professional competencies or expectations in your disciplinary area. Take surveys, StrengthsFinder, 16 personalities, learn more about yourself. Use brainstorming strategies like Photo Voice and write about photos that speak to you. Use concept mapping and finding metaphors to align to your experiences. After all the pre-free writing and creative exercises, start focusing in on a particular story to develop more detail about your life story. Collect evidence and documents about that topic or story. Do you have reference letters people have written for you for jobs? What's their perception of you? What do they see as your strengths? Look for disciplinary theories or frameworks that you can use to frame your story. As I was writing, I could see a connection between a goal of mine to be authentic to myself and don't compromise my values. This topic of authenticity became a thread as I was writing, which led me to the literature on authentic leadership. I thought about some of the characteristics of an authentic leader I read about, such as pursuing purpose and passion, establishing enduring relationships, and leading with my heart. Once you start collecting writing and documents and letters, even interviews, then you'll start assembling those and looking at the bigger picture. I wrote about everything being relational, how having skills loses importance if you can't connect with people and establish partnerships or relationships. I wrote about feeling like I was living out of the margins of the library or in the fringes and what was good and bad about that. I wrote about being open to taking risks, learning from mistakes, also trying to make lemonade from lemons, always trying to stay on the positive side, and always talking about opportunities as well as challenges. Understanding the difference between reflexivity and reflection is an important part of autoethnography. Reflexivity is about the examination, critical thinking, and asking deep questions about our values, feelings, and actions. Kind of the why of what you're doing. Reflection is often part of our practice, what we're learning from our experience, what we're learning from what has happened. So more about the what. So for example, I wrestled with living on the margins or fringes and how that's connected to the concept of relationships. For example, I wrote about how living in liminal spaces in the margins of the library and or any one system could help you establish relationships behind your space, and how this liminal space is a learning space or a space just outside our comfort zone. After you collect a variety of documents and writings, it's the patterns you'll try to find and the connections between the patterns that will help you see the bigger picture about important events or incidents in your career or life story. So as I connected the rearview mirror writing, I connected the rearview mirror writing to building my capacity across my different careers and how the jobs helped me see a clearer picture of what I'm doing today. It was not just like I stopped being a scientist and went into art. I used the critical analysis skills of my science jobs to help me merge critical analysis and creativity when I was working as a designer and an illustrator. I still draw on these designer skills when planning instruction and designing an evaluation for a grant. Because of the building of skills as I went through completely different careers, I now can feel more comfortable finding myself in the fringes of disciplines and in between system silos. I believe this is important for librarians to be able to live in the margins and work across disciplines. During this process, I also uncovered authentic leadership, a connection to authentic leadership, which I did not know anything about before starting this autoethnography project. My thinking about my profession and my personal life, my teaching and research philosophies, my philosophy of how people learn, and my approach to leadership and many other documents and journals from my past, I used reflexivity to really dig deeply into my past, my present life, my identity, and try to connect them to theoretical or conceptual constructs. How did I get here in Utah working in the Marriott Library? In my reflections, I write about how passion for what I do dominates everything I do. You can see transparently what I am. I try, and I don't always succeed in aligning my actions to my values, my work. I speak out for what I believe in. Trust and relationships are everything to me, and I have a high expectation for those I collaborate with. I own my actions, participate in reflective practice continuously, always looking for connections and relationships. I could align all of those to Bill George's and Peter Sims' True North book and their 5 dimensions of an authentic leader. Although I use the word authenticity in my writing and I found Harder's work about authenticity, which led me to the body of authentic leadership literature of George and Luthans and Avolio and others. Prior to my autoethnography writing, I would have described my leadership identity as being a grassroots leader, someone without a title, leading in the middle, based on Adriana Kazar's work. On further investigation, authentic leadership seems to encompass my grassroots leader identity. And now I understand more of why I do what I do. In addition to just analyzing the text and documents for patterns or words that resonated with me, I took this analysis a step further and coded line by line all my text and documents using grounded theory methods of Kathy Charmez. 6 themes emerged: emerging and converging identities, proactively embracing overlapping cultures, turning risk and serendipity into capacity building, building on other campus roles, responsibilities, and skill sets, reflecting on and leveraging experience and strengths, and fostering relationships and growing connections. With these themes identified, I'm now focusing on how I can take these goals and develop a future plan for my research and my teaching practice. So I guess in wrapping up here, I recommend a professional development process that includes reflection, writing, and analysis of life story vignettes that go beyond just reflecting on your career goals. Think about your life story to really get a handle on your professional persona in a more holistic way. I'm no longer asking the question about how do I fit in to a librarian mold, but rather I'm asking, how can I best use my past expertise and skill sets to redefine what librarians can and should be doing? I recommend Chang's book, Autoethnography as Method, with exercises to stimulate reflection on your life intersectionalities and how those impact your career. And Bill George's book and Peter Sims' book, True North, which focused on reflecting on leadership topics. and any other surveys or texts that are important to you to get a more holistic view of your professional and personal lives and where they overlap, to help you strategically decide what professional development opportunities and skill building will be best for you. A lot of time we go to professional development webinars and read books without direction. Go back and reflect on your past too to help you focus your efforts. The quote by Bill George and Peter Sims from their book True North sums it up for me. Ask what motivates them to lead. Authentic leaders consistently say they find their motivation through understanding their own stories. So the next slide is references, and I'll make these slides available so that you can check out these references. There's 2 free resources from George Sims, from George and Sims. One is a short book called Lead True, Authentic Leadership Rediscovered, and one is a series of reflective exercises that you can do to help you think about your leadership style. So looking forward to our discussion on October 9th. I'm really looking forward to that discussion. If you're interested in trying out this type of approach to focus in on your professional needs and future directions, I'll be glad to help. And I have set up an open Canvas website. The link is on this slide, and I'll provide these slides as a link in the chat so that you can, maybe we can develop an online community of practice and get working together on doing an autoethnography to identify common threads that go across our higher education life stories. So thanks very much, and I look forward to meeting you.